what we had. But going forward, and I think as a team, we need to start talking about how we're going to go more into the 21st century on how we're going to handle taxes, because we really need to start automating this beyond the old-fashioned paper in a book, make sure that's been sent out, make sure it gets a copy, because a couple different things are happening since I've started doing this fall that I can see how that crack receives misses, because you'll have addresses or people that moved mid-year, but also, for example, even though it wasn't stamped in the past, I have an example now that I have a bank calling me saying they have evidence of making a payment from 2011 on taxes. So, and I told them, I said, listen, if you can prove it, you can show me the payment made, the dates, check number, so on and so forth, I'll review it. And if I agree to it, we'll waive the fees and we'll call it paid. But there's a stopgap where, human as humans, we make mistakes as well. But missing a page, not having a stamp on that page, has to be kind of an old mindset. So going forward, the first quarter of next year, I really want to start getting proposals together for you guys to review to better automate it, to get online payments starting to receive, credit card payments, but also have an automated reporting system to understand daily, weekly, monthly, however it works, who's paid, who hasn't paid, the exact people, who's moved, all that kind of thing. You got to have a better, more quick viewpoint of what the situation is like, instead of relying on hard copy pages and stamps and photocopies and checks in the back. So let's get to this little hurdle of paper, and then let's get more modern with it and, as a team. So I hope that helps. But yes, I'm going to ask that question to the auditor, by the way, Todd, as well.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, we bounced around quite a bit there. So I think, Dana, you were covered on the actual ledger, but back to the budget summary. Is there any questions on that 6-page, 5-tab budget summary? And then, with that said, or no questions said, I have a response to a comment. Jennifer asked me a question about the closeout of 19-20. And Kay, and I want to do that this next couple of weeks. I'm basically going to do the same report summary, but I need to show the ending balances for 19-20, and I'll give that to you, to the council as well, so we can kind of, it's not technically closing it out, but it's closing it out for you guys to understand how the budget looked versus actuals. Okay?
I have one question, and this is really small potatoes, but
Sure.
I understand that there is a slush fund or a petty cash fund in the office. Is that correct?
Yes, there is cash in the little cash bin, coin and small dollars.
Okay. Is that included in the audit?
Actually, they've not asked a question about it yet, Jennifer, but they're still going through it, of course, but yeah, it's
Sean, Jennifer, I called about that when I had found a report on QuickBooks. It said we had $350 in there, and then when we counted it, there's probably half of that. I called the auditors on that. They said they don't count that into the audit. That's something internal.
Where does that money come from?
A lot of it, from my understanding, is, Jennifer, it was like yard sales that pay the $5 fees for the yard sale ordinance. But it was here when I came, so I can't answer for all of it.
Do you think that's something that should possibly maybe be put in the monthly report, treasurer's report, financial report?
Let me offer you something, Danny, to that note. So let me give you a kind of the viewpoint in my mind, how I think cash should work. For example, if someone comes in and pays a bill for taxes that, say it's $49.91, I take that money, and I've been changing it out for them, of course, to the resident. But when I make a deposit to the bank, I'm making a deposit to the bank for the pennies. Every penny accounted for goes in for that deposit. So when I go to the bank, I'm bringing coin, cash, checks, yada, yada, yada. When this cash fund reduces to a point where I have to add to it, I will make a withdrawal from the account, basically write a check to the account. It'll be in the ledger. So you'll know exactly what's being removed for cash if I need change, for example. And we'll also be able to fall back on that cross-check that it's just not me handling the cash. It takes 2 signatures to move money anywhere. be it, in the fund or whatever else. So it's, yeah, I get it. But yeah, it should be in the, if I take money after change, which I'm getting a little bit tight now because of the cash coming in for taxes, I may have to get like, $50 in cash kind of change wise, but that'll be in the ledger as a withdrawal. So there's a paper trail to it. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Absolutely. Thank you for that explanation.
Yeah, of course.
Very much.
Listen, every penny of this is not mine, so I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. We know where every penny is.
Well, and then we don't run into problems later on if we have a process in place. That's,
Amen.
thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, so going from the budget, moving forward, the last part was the delinquent tracking that I'm doing on a spreadsheet. So just to give you a heads up, we're still tackling the process itself. And I mentioned before about an example of one bill that's 7 years old that the bank's going to be giving me data on to prove payment. But I will tell you also, I'm also getting a lot more questions we're getting a nice cross check from the spreadsheet format to our actual bills. And we're starting to get 2020 payments, but they're coming with the 2015 payments. So the cross check is actually working pretty well, which is great news. And like it shows, we have about 13.6 billed out, 4,100 received so far of that. Mr. Edmondson mentioned a little while ago about a bankruptcy that's happening. It's one of those past tax bills that have been billed out, so we're submitting documentation to make sure the city's covered, that kind of thing. So I feel good about how it's going. It's just not going fast enough. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I have, guys. If any more questions, please let me know. If not, we need to kind of move forward. I took up way too much time.
I've got one
I'm
other
too
question
long-winded.
for you, Sean.
Yes, sir.
On page, it says page 2. It's on the budget summary. That's
Yes, sir.
actually the third paper page.
Yes.
Down at the bottom, the beautification. I thought we had 3,500 in the beautification fund.
We do. The page you're referring to, Todd, is revenues coming in.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no revenues coming in for it, but it is a appropriation of expenses or, a budget of expenses that will be utilized.
We have 500 in the beautification, but we have 3,500 for tourism, matching tourism funds for.
Oh. Yeah, good point.
Oh,
Okay.
all right. I thought that was the same bucket, but that's good. And Jamie Baker did say that the benches and garbage cans are on order, and it should be like December when we get them.
Okay. Yeah, just make sure she sends me some kind of invoice or something so I can pay to it, So.
Take care of that.
Oh, thank you, Kay. Okay. With that note, does anybody want a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Anybody want to second it?
I'll second it. Second it.
Okay, yeah, Mr. Purcell, you're faster than Mr. Martin, so hang on one second. Hang on 1 second. All right, Mr. Purcell. So I would assume, Mr. Martin, do you,
Yes.
Yes, okay. And, Miss Humphrey?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. And then, last but not least, Mr. Doozy?
Yes.
Okay, and then Miss Lowry?
Yes.
Wonderful, motion carried. If I say Miss or Mrs., I apologize. It's, whatever. But, I'm trying to be polite. All right, so, motion carried. Thanks, guys.
On the agenda, we have the first reading to amend the budget. If council has had time to look at that ordinance to amend, and Sean can do the first reading.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so make sure I'm on mute. I'm on mute. Good. So ordinance number 286-2020A. I took the original ordinance number from June 22nd and added A to it, of course. The ordinance relating to the amending of the code ordinance to modify the annual budget for fiscal year 2020-21. It is ordained by the City Council that the following amendments to the annual budget fiscal year 2021 will be deemed necessary and approved. I went through 4 sections of this, but whereas modify the annual budget to add construction costs for the Oakwood project. Secondly, add engineering costs for the Oakwood project. Thirdly, add funds for the small business economic relief grants that was approved last month. And then lastly, modify a slight modification to the budget for the Republic Services, the monthly trash expenditures that goes out per month. We're a little shy on the budget for the full year. And then, yes, ma'am.
Wait a minute. Go ahead. I had requested $5,000 be added to that fund
Which
for,
fund?
holiday decorations on Main Street.
Before we vote on this, are we gonna, where are the numbers that go with this? Like, how much are we adding for construction costs, engineering costs? Shouldn't that number
Right there, Todd, on the general fund budget summary to the right, that's the difference, but if you want a total, is that what you're wanting?
Well, I just assumed that number would have been on that ordinance, but, okay, let me find it.
Todd, to answer that question, this is me writing this. So I took one of the amendments from last year as an example, and the amendment wrote was very general, but the backing of it, or the back page of it, was the, I guess, a budget breakdown, and it struck through items that were added and subtracted to, or whatever else, but it wasn't showing a difference. Do you have a question on which ones, or?
Well, just, how much are we adjusting the budget for? If it's on a page, I'm just not finding it.
Okay, did you have that spreadsheet looking form that has like 2 pages of it that shows all the revenues coming in, title original budget versus amended budget, 2 different columns? It should have been right behind the actual ordinance.
Oh, that order has been blown out the door.
Okay.
Are they stapled together?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Were they stapled together?
Yes.
Mine were loose.
They were loose? Oh, that's my apologies.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, I don't have a way of sharing this thing. I don't have Zoom on the computer, so it's in front of me, but
We have time, Sean, this is just the first reading, then we'll have time to get the totals, before the second reading.
Yeah, that's fine.
My question is with, Ms. Lowry, if, we didn't put the 5,000 in for the holiday decorations.
Whoa, was it 5,000 or 500?
No, I asked for 5,000. Don't cut me short, Todd.
hey, can I ask you a question on the timing, Paula? Was that recent, or was that something that happened last June?
That's something that happened last meeting. I asked for $5,000 for holiday decorations on Main Street.
Was that in our minutes? I didn't see that in the minutes.
No, it's not in the minutes. It is not.
Yeah, I missed that completely.
I think Paula discussed that when we had the committee meeting for the CARES Act funding, we was talking about
Oh,
that.
you know what? You're correct. That's why it's not in the minutes. We discussed that when we had the CARES Act meeting, me, Todd, and Joe.
Oh, okay.
So let me ask this. May we add $5,000 and to the budget to amend it for holiday decorations?
Do we have any decorations on hand at the moment from past?
Up in like 1952.
Well, let's do retro this year then and use them. That's, Paula, I love you, but $5,000 for holiday decorations is, in my opinion, a lot of money.
Have you seen the holiday decorations book? Some of the holiday decorations are $250,000 for cities. we need to do something for the citizens, for the children in Crittenden to beautify and I mean, come on.
What about solar? You know, we could maybe do solar wreaths or snowflakes or something like that from the brackets.
That'd be great. I'm up for that. Let's amend the budget, put it on a line item. If it's not used, then for holiday decorations, we can put it back in the general fund.
Why don't we use the beautification fund money?
We got about $200 left.
Well, how about we do this? We have another meeting on Thursday. Let's get some numbers and see what we come up with.
Joe might be able to talk about this too, talking about Oakwood, about the added cost. And I'm kind of confused, and Joe might be able to explain this too. I was under the impression that we've already paid the engineering cost to draw up what needed to be done. But like I said, Joe might be able to do that. That's one thing. But also on the modify the budget for the cost of small business economic relief, how much is supposedly going out? I didn't see that on the piece of paper that Sean was talking about. I did see it right now, 53,000. I did see that. I'm sorry. So how many people, how many businesses are we talking about for that $53,833?
Two businesses, Danny. Two businesses.
Hey, Danny, the paper you're looking at right now, can you hold that in front of your camera?
Todd, I can email that to you right now.
Yeah, I can too, Todd. I could do that, Mayor, if you want me to.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
That's a perfect. That
You
helps.
have email up?
Yeah, I can get it on email.
Yeah, give me 2 seconds. And then, Danny, you and I had a discussion the other day about the same report. And I wanted to explain one thing that I think will also help regards to the money transfer process in regards to the surplus that's seen at the bottom itself. So give me 2 seconds to do this. Let's see.
Mayor, are we to understand that two businesses have requested the 53,833.13 already?
Yeah, well, that's their loss for two, Jim, and I did reach out to everyone, I put it in the paper, and the majority had already received some kind of federal funding from the Small Business Association.
Could we ask who those two businesses are?
Whippy Dip and Modern Nails.
And how much have they requested each?
Well, they didn't really request a dollar amount, Jim. They showed
Or loss.
a profit loss margin from their CPA.
Okay, and the committee has reviewed those and is satisfied that those are actual losses as a result of the pandemic?
Yes, Jim, we did.
For the information that was given to us, it does look legitimate, so that's the best I can tell you, Jim.
Okay.
There's someone's mic that's hot, but can I, Todd, you get my email?
Brett, can you mute your mic?
You know, or with the boys, I'm over at your house sometime.
You say go lay down.
You and David go lay down.
Yes, Sean,
Okay.
I did get that, Sean.
Okay, hey, Kay, give me 2 seconds to go through this real quick, if you don't mind. I know it's taking a while.
Go ahead.
All right, so this is in general. So it goes revenue down. It goes revenue down through expenditures, right? So in the revenue, you're going to see a couple line items. One's Oakwood Drive project dash grants, and one's small business economic relief grant. So the small business relief grant, like Danny mentioned before, is a wash. You'll see that same dollar amount in the appropriations. The Oakwood Drive project side, the grant money that's been approved was never allocated in the revenue side of the budget because the project was never approved. So only the expense was put into the budget, right? So when you have this now approved by the council and we're moving forward with it, the grant money, when the project's complete, will, appropriately request it from Frankfurt and receive it most likely in the springtime, I'd say, but it's gonna be in this fiscal year. So I added back the revenue from the grant monies. Does that make sense? So you're gonna see a surplus in revenue, and then you scroll down basically into page 1 to page 2, you see the changes in expenditures from the budget standpoint. One, sanitation. Sanitation was basically doing some math on the worst case to our highest cost per month times 12. We should end up around 112,300, but I put it for 113. So, and then you see the Oakwood Drive project already had a budget of 135. I added the total of 28,628 because of the added construction costs plus the performance bond. Okay. And then you see the small business relief grant. That's basically the wash of the money's going out that will come back from Frankfurt. And then engineering fees, I did add 6,000. That would cover the Rick Carr expense for the project on top of the budget of monies that were already there. And that's basically all the changes at this point in time outside Mr. Lowry's request for Christmas funding. But if you go down on the bottom, you see the appropriations is now a surplus of 74,000. That's because, in my understanding of the budget, the revenue for the fund was never there, the grant for the road construction, because the project was never approved. So that money was never on the agenda, basically, to be received in this budget year. So,
That's correct.
does that make sense?
That is correct.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Should council take a vote on the 5,000 to be added to the budget amendment? Because I don't see we can just put it in there and then vote on some and not on others. Do you think that's going to be a problem, council, when we get to the second reading of the budget for the 5,000 for the Christmas?
Thank you.
Well,
Well, can we vote on it? Because I don't mean to be mean. That's a lot of money. And yes, I know some cities spend 250,000. I know, but I don't know if there could be a breakdown of what that $5,000 is going to be. But that's in my opinion. I'm sorry, that's a lot for Christmas decorations.
Okay. You want to take a vote through roll call?
Well, hold on a second.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Paula,
Why?
as a startup, how do you feel if we were to make that number 3,500?
I'll go with that. It's a start.
It's a
But
start.
if to start.
And then
to
next
start.
budget, we can add a little bit more and we can build on what we have.
That sounds great.
Can somebody explain what the 3,500 is going to be spent on?
Yeah, Christmas decorations, Danny.
Okay, reusable one or disposable ones?
Reusable.
No. I'm gonna check into reusable where we can add to it year to year.
Okay, so these aren't going to be flowers that are going to die that we're going to put behind somebody's house.
No. We're gonna try and check into solar powered wreaths and things like that.
Now you've got 2 days to make it or break it.
No pressure.
Todd,
Yes, ma'am.
you better be thankful we're on Zoom.
Now, can Joe Dusing talk to us about the $13,500 for the added extra engineering fees? Because I thought we'd already had paid Caliber.
Caliber is essentially done except for a little housekeeping work. I'm going to talk about that later, but basically we paid him $10,000 to do the design work and to do a bid package, a cover letter that carried us through the bid process. We were always going to hire some kind of field construction supervision to be determined. And right now that looks like that's Carr Engineering. And the mayor's been negotiating with him, and I've given some input. round numbers, it's gonna be $5,000 or $6,000 to get car engineering on that. So the total Oakwood project is the difference between 159,000, which is the bid, and the 135 that's in this year's budget, plus the performance bond, plus the car engineering time that, and Sean kind of shares that. So there's some housekeeping work that Arden needs to do from Caliber Engineering, and if there's any time, I'll talk about that later. So that's what it's about. I agree with Sean's numbers.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Barely.
Are you there?
There you go.
I'm in agreement with Sean's numbers as well. I would like to ask Paula, would you be agreeable to half of the amount that you asked for, 2,500, and then we build on that next year?
No, guys, this stuff, if we start with cheap stuff, the 2,500, that's not gonna get Main Street covered on all the poles and stuff. I can guarantee you that. And these, even if we go to Home Depot and purchase solar lighted wreaths, I mean, for all the poles on Main Street, maybe some other decorations around the city sign. I'm telling you, please, just give me 3,500. You know, I don't mind cutting it from 5,000 to 3,500, but work with me a little bit.
How much are the solar powered wreaths?
We hadn't looked into them.
I haven't looked into it yet, Danny.
Well,
Here's the thing, we saved $10,000 from the bicentennial. You guys were willing to put up $10,000 for a bicentennial that wasn't even Crittenden's bicentennial. I mean, James.
So is that money for the bicentennial still in there?
No, we took it out because of the COVID. We didn't have it.
Have we checked with anybody that we can even do decorations on all the poles?
And is that gonna mess with the honor, is that gonna mess with the military veteran banners?
Well,
That
those-
military veteran banner should already be taken down. And we've already paid our fee to use the poles for a year. Is that correct, Mayor?
I had a phone call from him and he was sending the check back, and I did talk with Sean on voiding out that check. He's never cashed it. And,
It's blocked.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we did save money on that, but, Leo Saylor and JD are gonna be taking them down after Veterans Day. I thought it was proper to keep them up for Veterans Day tomorrow, so they will be taken down this week. And then, if we have, decorations, then we can get them up.
Do we have a place to store those decorations for next year?
Add some shelving to the salt building and use that for storage, surplus, things like that. There's not really much room here at the city building. We have one utility closet and one closet in the hallway for books, so, that's our plan.
Well, I can remember back probably 15 years ago, we used to have decorations up. So I'm going to go ahead and make the motion for 3,500 to be added to the budget.
Have a second?
I'll second it.
Sorry, I was going through some different things.
You're-
Yeah, so Mr. Martin?
Yeah, well, I wanted to, for discussion after we make the second motion, we're confirming this is all gonna be reusable stuff, so we won't have this, we'll have it again for next year, right?
Yes, sir.
And it,
That's in the notes as well, by the way.
and it will be
Okay, I said,
line itemed only to be used for poles and the city sign.
Decorations, right?
Decorations only.
All right.
okay, yes.
Okay, Mr. Martin, Mrs. Humphrey?
I'll abstain.
Okay, Mr. Purcell
No.
and Mr. Thusing?
No.
Okay, so I have, the motion from Mr. Roberts, second from Mrs. Lowry, yes from Mr. Martin, then I have abstain, and I have 2 noes, Mr. Purcell, Mr. Duzing. So, educate me here, is this a motion carried with the abstain? 3 yeses, 2 noes, and abstain?
The abstain counts as a yes if the majority is yes.
Okay, so motion carried.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, so, I guess my question, this is the education side, so from a first reading standpoint, do I need to add a line to the notes and then, of course, redistribute my amendment?
Yes, please.
Okay, and I will go ahead and add it as a line item on page 1 of the budget bucket. Just call it Christmas decorations and line items so we can track the cost and understand what's being spent and stuff. So, okay, all right, I'll do that. I'll revise it. I'll have it out on email Thursday morning because we're off tomorrow and my wife's, well, at home resting right now. But yeah, it'll be out Thursday morning and then we'll talk about it in the second reading Thursday night. Is that okay for everybody?
Sounds great.
Okay, all right. All right, thanks guys. Appreciate it. Motion carried.
New business, I'm gonna talk to council about, and Chief Lee Burton, possibly having a Christmas parade, not really getting people together as we have the COVID-19 and for the county, but to drive around like we did in May, for the May Day parade, and just toss out some candy and maybe have a Santa Claus for the children.
I love it.
Danny, are you listening?
Well, I'm sorry, I was telling my boy good night, so I don't mean to be rude. You might need to say that again.
Request for a Christmas parade for the community. I just want to see if council want to get on board, Lee Burton, and do like we did it back in May, that we drove around the city, threw out some candy, maybe possibly have Santa this year, and do it that way so we won't have a congregation on Main Street for a parade and the social distancing. Instead, we drive around like we did before. What does council think about that?
I like the idea, but I mean, Lee, what do you
Santa?
think?
I'm all for that. I think it's a good idea. I can find Santa a nice place on the platform of the area. I think it would be fun.
Do we have Brian May?
Wait a minute. What does council think of the parade?
Well, it's not gonna cost any money but fire to park and gas, right?
Maybe some
Right.
candy and Santa Claus, then Public Works. Or if we can find a free Santa, can